welcome to How to Create Supportive Housing info session and kickoff for Elevate Nevada's supportive housing track. I'm really excited to be here today. We have so much good stuff to share with you. I wanted to take a few minutes to introduce myself and talk a little bit more about Elevate Nevada and some of the other stuff we're doing. My name is Joanna, and I'm the program and grant coordinator here at Nevada Housing Coalition and your main point of contact for all Elevate Nevada affordable housing programming that we're doing here at the coalition. I just want to let everybody know that the webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending out any relevant materials and links afterwards, including a link to the recording if you want to watch again, or if you can't stay the whole time and you want to catch up. I also wanted to just talk a little bit about Elevate Nevada overall and some of the upcoming events that we have to look forward to in the next few months. This is a statewide affordable housing capacity building program made possible by a generous grant from the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. With that funding, we're planning several events for affordable housing stakeholders to meet and learn from each other, to get technical assistance, build partnerships, and get all of your affordable housing projects funded and in the pipeline here in Nevada. A core goal of this year's programming is to assist developers in putting together competitive applications for Federal Home Loan Bank's AHP program. And to help with that, we're going to be launching a Catalyst funding programming to support some AHP applicants with technical assistance, consulting, and professional development. So these are going to be some small grants coming soon. Stay tuned for updates by heading over to the Nevada Housing Coalition website and signing up for our mailing list, or filling out an Elevate Nevada interest form on the program page. And I'll put some links to that in the chat, as well as my contact information for anyone who has questions or any comments or special interests in capacity building for affordable housing over the next several months. Okay, well, let's get the program rolling. I'm very happy to introduce Brooke Page, Director of Southwest CSH and a board member here at the coalition. She and her team at CSH are our education partners on this supportive housing track of Elevate Nevada and have designed a very exciting session for you all today. Brooke is going to share with us what supportive housing is right now. And on a personal note, I'm very excited. I come from a supportive housing background from Seattle. I was a case manager there and at Plymouth Housing for many years, and I really believe that Nevada needs supportive housing and that it's going to do the right, and by building it, we're going to be really able to help folks that need it. It's really a great solution for homelessness. And so I'm excited that there's so much interest in it here today. Okay, take it away, Brooke.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joanna. And good morning, Nevada. Thank you so much for joining us today for the kickoff of the Elevate Nevada Supportive Housing. We are really excited. And as Joanna mentioned, I'm Brooke Page. I'm the director for the Corporation for Supportive Housing for the Southwest. And I am joined today by the newest member of the Southwest team for CSH, Chuck Peterson. So I'll let Chuck introduce himself.
I always forget to turn off the mute button. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here. As Brooke said, I'm Chuck Peterson, Senior Program Manager with the Southwest region, and I'm excited to be a part of this group. I actually ran a supportive housing program in Minneapolis, Minnesota for about 10 years called Clare Housing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. So thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Chuck. And so for those that are not familiar with the Corporation for Supportive Housing and the work that we do, on the screen, this is an outline of how do our 4 lines of business. We are a national nonprofit organization that's focused on the solutions to some of our community's most challenging issues, housing being a big issue in Nevada. We work as an organization to train, to build capacity, to lend to supportive housing projects, and to do policy reform to make sure that we've got the ongoing resources that we need to help people get access to housing and stay stably housed. We also provide consulting and technical assistance. And we do all these things for the last 30 years. We've been in business, and we've really shown the importance of creating 335,000 homes for people who need it, that need those services and wraparounds. And so today we're going to really outline what supportive housing is. We want folks to understand this intervention in more detail, and to kind of understand the importance of it and the opportunity that we have in Nevada to really scale it, and seed it in the state. So today's agenda, we definitely want to make sure, again, we're going to talk about quality supportive housing, because that's definitely different than just supportive housing in general. So we're going to define what that means. We're also going to have some great opportunities to feature states and communities across the country that are advancing supportive housing, and the leadership that is helping to do that. And so we're really excited about our featured guests today, and they're going to help us talk about how to fund supportive housing as an intervention. They also are going to help us really with those concrete examples. We want to show you all specifically what it takes to develop this intervention, because ultimately we're going to end today with the importance of building the capacity of our state, of our developers, our direct service providers that are in the field, that have been doing this work for years, working with people who have complex needs and complex challenges to housing. We want to help educate on how you all can work together to develop supportive housing for Nevada, and build the capacity internally. So this is really an opportunity to pique the interest of those that may be wondering what supportive housing is. How do you start it? How do you develop it? How do you create it? You're in the right place if you have those questions. This is what the Elevate Nevada is all about. So that's our agenda for today. And so without further ado, I really want you all to think about this. And you could even put some ideas in the chat. I see some pretty active chats going on, which is great. We love to see all the folks that are joining us today. Thank you so much for putting your information in the chat. And also, Joanna, thank you for the links. Any of the things that we're going to talk about today, we'll try to have the links in the chat. But then, as Joanna mentioned, you'll also receive the recording and the slides today as well. And so we really want you all to think about, what does it mean when you think about quality supportive housing? We want you to just take a moment to think about that, because that's what we really want to emphasize and help you all develop in Nevada, those that are interested in quality supportive housing. Just take a minute. What does that mean, quality supportive housing? All right, so I see in the chat some services that meet the needs of the residents, and I just really appreciate that comment. Right, we were talking about services. We're talking about on-site services, which is different, possibly maybe than somebody having to go to someplace and get access to services. So having them where they live on site. I see some interactive support. And relationship building, housing with services across the spectrum of the needs of Nevadans. So some folks already are in the right frame of mind thinking about this: thoughtful, collaborative, long-term, full wraparound and services, thinking about special needs, and really honing in on the needs of and maybe an individual or a household. So low barrier, absolutely, tenant-centered. Thank you all so much. We recognize that we have a very, very diverse group of people that are thinking about this. So yes, all of the above and then some. We want you all to kind of think about things that have been brought in the chat today, and what quality means, because we want to help define this for our state. We want to really hone in on quality. And bringing the quality elements in order to make sure that we are supporting the needs of people, to get people access to a home, to get people to stay stably housed for as long as they need services. And so we're going to help define that today. And so as you see on your screen, defining quality supportive housing, it incorporates some really important ingredients: targeting households that face multiple barriers to housing. And so I saw in the chat folks talking about special needs populations, and there's folks that have complex needs, right? And so how are we targeting the folks that need this intervention the most? People that have those high needs. A big piece of quality supportive housing is affordability. We know housing and homelessness is a policy issue right now because we're dealing with an affordability crisis right now in our state. It's expensive. Housing costs are rising, and it's definitely difficult for people to afford to live in the state of Nevada. So having an affordable place for someone to live is key to quality supportive housing. Also requiring only a standard lease obligation, right? So having a lease that is the same as any other tenant would sign in a tenant-landlord relationship that is required and doesn't have a bunch of other conditions on it, right? Whatever a standard lease has, a supportive housing is no different. They have the same standard of a lease agreement. And then also this notion of a voluntary wraparound services. This is a really important piece of supportive housing, that we've got tenants that are wrapped with their individualized tenant-centered services that meet their needs, and that's coordinated with partners that maybe we're brokering relationships, or we have a formalized agreement in place for certain services, but really helping to meet the individual needs of tenants, and that it's integrated in the community. Community is a really another piece and premise to supportive housing. We have community members that are part of our community, that are actively engaged in community, have access to resources and healthy food and access to transportation and integrated in community. So just some very high level ideas and important pieces of what quality supportive housing is. But that's, very good information to have in general. Let's talk about this in practical terms. And so I invite my colleague, Chuck, to really help us think about supportive housing as an example from your view of the world. You introduced yourself as somebody that's developed supportive housing in the past. Tell us about Clare Housing and how Clare defines quality supportive housing.
Thanks, Brooke. Thrilled to be here today. Supportive housing really is my passion. Had the opportunity to serve as executive director of Clare Housing in Minneapolis for about 8 years. And during my tenure there, we built 2 apartment buildings of the 4 that we had. And our target population was, we served people living with HIV who were either homeless or extremely low income folks. Probably about 75% of our residents came directly out of homelessness, and the rest came from couch hopping or affordability issues, and really needed those wraparound supportive services to build their foundation to be able to enjoy the life that they wanted to live. We were owner operated, so we developed and owned the 4 apartment buildings. We utilized a variety of funding sources to finance the construction of those buildings, everything from the Federal Home Loan Bank, from Corporation for Supportive Housing for pre-development support. We used LIHTC funding, as well as a variety of state, federal, and city resources supported that. And one of the challenges I often heard, and I'm sure you all hear here, is how do we fund supportive services? Because if we're going to have a successful quality program, we have to find those funding sources to be able to support our residents. And we were staffed with a full-time front desk person. We were staffed 24/7, and we had a full-time supportive services manager in each building. And 2 of our buildings took advantage of a CADI Medicaid waiver in Minnesota, which provided nursing support on site in 2 of our buildings for about 35, 36 residents. And that really demonstrates the success of supportive housing and the whole notion around housing as healthcare. The folks who came into our program, about 60% of them came into our program with detectable HIV viral loads in their system. Within 6 months, we were able to turn that around to achieve, at the end of the year, a 96% undetectable viral load with our programs, which means not only were we providing healthcare and housing, we were preventing the spread of HIV in our community. And I think that's a great example of how supportive housing can really make a difference in people's lives, reduce medical costs within the community, and really help someone live their best lives. We were a housing first harm reduction program, so we didn't require sobriety to come into our program. And we really were about get their housing stabilized first, and then everything else will kind of fall into line to help them be successful. And one of the most important things I can't stress enough that I'm sure many of you know is partnering with a mission-driven property management firm, a firm that really understands the population that you're serving and how you're going to achieve that work. So I want to talk just a little bit about the key components of supportive housing. Project design and administration, critical. Spend the necessary time as you're thinking about these projects to think about the building, how it's going to be administered. Think about supportive services. What type of services do you want to have? I'll touch on that in a second. And property and housing management, as I just mentioned, is a critical component. And last, community. We all know there's a lot of NIMBY in our communities, and we had to face that stigma in every community that we went into. And we really took the time to have our residents and our neighbors come together and get to know each other to build that support and build that support of our housing programs. So just a little definition around the difference or why supportive housing is the solution. And I mentioned some of these already. Supportive housing is affordable, permanent, and independent. It's flexible, it's voluntary, it's tenant-centered. So everything we did at Clare was focused on the tenant and what they needed to be successful. So things like meaningful daily activity, addiction recovery. We worked with folks. We found that folks would come into our program with a high use of a chemical substance. And once they felt stabilized and they didn't have to worry about their housing, where their next meal was going to come from, we saw use drop dramatically. And we saw folks more open to considering recovery programs and not using at all. We focused on physical health and wellness, employment for those that are able to work. We provided on-site mental health services as well. And as I mentioned before, community engagement, partnering with our neighbors and our neighborhood associations so that we were truly a part of that neighborhood. And I just want to close with talking a little bit about the difference between supportive housing and resident services, because I think there is a lot of conversation around what truly is supportive housing. When you think about resident services, a building, it is voluntary. It's often a one-size-fits-all approach, and there basically is a resident service coordinator for the entire building, regardless of that size. If you compare that to supportive housings, we're really going to focus on the individual and have individualized care plans, support plans. We're going to be proactive with working with our residents. We're really going to focus on housing stability and retention. Our goal, because we were permanent supportive housing, is to keep people housed. And our average length of stay was normally around 4 to 5 years, which contrasts to kind of a resident service normal building, a much higher rate of retention. And our programs were flexible and voluntary. We didn't require anyone to participate, but because we had such a great staff and we built relationships with our residents, we always had 100% participation. So I'm going to drop it there and really excited to be here. And as we continue through the program, happy to answer any questions that you have. Back to you, Brooke.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Chuck. And you're getting a lot of wonderful feedback in the chat regarding the outcomes with the viral load and all of the successes with Clare Housing. So thank you so much for elevating that. And so next we want to talk about the opportunity in Nevada. There is the opportunity is really exciting. We talk about this a lot. at the Housing Coalition and the work groups that are working on developing solutions. We know that we helped with developing a really great ask to the state legislature and the governor that helped seed a Home Means Nevada initiative that really helped plant the seed for $500 million of resources that are dedicated to affordable housing in our state. We also have seen the investment. This particular incubator academy that we're going to talk about today is, funded with the great resources from the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco through the Elevate Nevada program. So we have opportunities to build the capacity of our providers, our developers, and our property managers to do supportive housing and to do it well to quality standards. And we also are on the heels of having a benefit that's going to help us fund tenancy support services. So a lot of the information that was raised by Chuck and what they're doing in Clare housing will soon have a benefit in Nevada that will also fund services. So that issue about where is services funding going to come from, we are on the heels of having some dedicated funding in our state for that. So just some really prime opportunities that we know are important. And so we want to hear from the work of states that are also funding supportive housing. And we have a treat today. We're really just grateful to have Zach Gross, who is the supportive housing manager from the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, to talk about why they fund supportive housing and what this looks like in Indiana. So I'm going to turn it over to Zach to talk about that.
Thanks, Brooke. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. And good morning, Nevada. It's afternoon here in Indiana. So can I share my screen or?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, like I said, so like Brooke said, my name is Zach Gross. I'm the supportive housing manager for the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority, or IHCDA. So we are the state housing finance agency in Indiana. We're also a balance of state public housing agency, so we cover a good portion of the state as a PHA. And we are the collaborative applicant for the balance of state continuum of care, which covers all of Indiana except for Marion County, which is its own continuum of care. And Marion County, Indiana is where Indianapolis is. So I'll talk about our Supportive Housing Institute. That is Indiana's primary way that we develop supportive housing. It is almost the exclusive way that we develop site-based permanent supportive housing. So this initiative launched in 2008. We held the 13th Institute in 2022. So this is a training that is provided in partnership between IHCDA and CSH. So we select teams to compete through a local RFP. And teams selected have to consist of a developer, property manager, and service provider partner. We also see additional team members come in as local funders or city staff or other interested parties in the project who are going to have a say in the project. So the idea is that the team comes together and they attend a training together as a team where they learn the ins and outs of supportive housing, how to develop, manage, and provide services. And the team the whole team attends every session together, which really cements the team and gets everybody trained on all aspects of providing supportive housing and operating quality supportive housing. So this process lasts over 4 months. It's 11 total days of training. And throughout that training, they develop develop their project concept, they develop their tenant selection plan, the services budgets, things like that, and receive training on best practices in supportive housing. And then after the training is complete, they're eligible to apply for funding from IHCDA. So the Institute, just a couple of benefits, it reduces the time it takes to obtain funding. It helps us manage our pipeline of projects that are applying for funding and manage our resources better. And it teaches developers and property managers, service providers how to operate quality supportive housing, how to interact together and work together to provide the best projects possible. So a little bit about the structure of that. So you see the development team there in the middle. So the core components of the team, the core pieces of the project are all there present at the Institute. And then CSH provides the bulk of the training, and we come in to provide some of the training on some of our funding resources, things like that. But CSH is providing the majority of that training. They review plans before projects can move forward for funding. So that includes like tenant selection plan, support services plan, eviction prevention plan, things like that, to make sure that they are high quality and have all the necessary components that we train on. CSH also provides pre-development loans, and then after the projects are completed, CSH provides some ongoing TA to the properties, especially throughout that first year of operations where things are kind of getting set up and there's a lot of pitfalls, and we often get pulled into conversations with properties to make sure things are going well, and especially their first year. IHCDA assists with some of that training and provide technical assistance as well, and work with CSH on the back end to provide that ongoing assistance. And we provide capital funding and rental assistance and conduct ongoing monitoring for our programs. So the Indiana Institute is unique in the way that it connects teams to funding resources. So IHCDA is in the position to be able to provide low-income housing tax credits, home housing, National Housing Trust Fund, and our Indiana Development Fund sources as capital funds to institute projects. So we, through various ways, either have set-asides or scoring that incentivizes projects that have completed the Institute so that we can make sure that those projects get funding. We also have rental assistance. So like I said, we are a balanced state public housing agency. So we have the ability to put project-based housing choice vouchers in projects. And we also are the Clever applicant for the continuum of care, which of course doesn't mean that we can award that funding on our own, but it does mean that we work together with the continuum of care board to ensure that projects that pursue that resource are able to be prioritized for that. So I mentioned our pipeline before. So I think the Institute is really a great tool because it allows IHCDA to manage our pipeline for projects for funding. So each year we determine the type of supportive housing developments that are eligible to apply for the Institute. And that determination is based on what projects are currently applying for funding that are in that pipeline that are still coming in for funding. So we don't want to just have it open every year where we have 5 or 6 projects that are all going after the same resource, because we know that we can fund maybe 2, 3, 4 tops projects a year, and then 10 years later we're going to have projects that are 10 years old that are still applying for funding. And we don't want that to happen, because at that point in time, most of the staff that have gone through the training probably are not there anymore. Their project might have, they might have dropped the project because they can't get through the funding rounds. So we really want projects that are selected to go through the Institute to be able to get funding within a couple of years. So the way we do that is we have a couple different models. So we have integrated housing where we have about 25% of the units in a site are going to be supportive housing units, or we'll do 100% supportive housing where all the units are supportive housing. There's some flexibility there every once in a while with certain types of projects where they can sort of choose that model that best fits for them and their location and scope of project. We also, we'll use low-income housing tax credits for project funding. So we have a housing first set aside in our QAP. So we have 10% of our overall tax credit allocation is set aside for supportive housing properties. In the past, that has been targeted only to 100% supportive housing, but we've opened it up in this version of the QAP for integrated housing as well, just because we have a lot of that in the pipeline, and that's a really necessary resource that's been very popular. And then we have a points category for integrated housing where supportive housing developments that have gone through the Institute get preference points under that QAP, a good amount of them for going through the Institute. So we see those projects being pretty competitive through both these different ways that we incentivize projects. And then we'll also do home and National Housing Trust Fund projects, where some years we'll do a mix of the two sources. But when we do the Home and National Housing Trust Fund, we will, those are usually smaller projects, and we will explicitly say that they're not eligible to apply for low-income housing tax credits, that those are only using those dedicated sources. So in that way, if we have 6, 7, 8 projects in the pipeline for tax credits, then we can do an institute where this year we're going to use different sources, and those sources are not going to compete with the other sources. So we can manage our pipeline by kind of having the dual track there. So I'm moving on. So I'll talk a little bit about the partnerships that we have developed. So successful supportive housing developments, rely on strong partnerships. So in addition to the partners on a project, the service providers, the development and property management partners, city and state governments need to be involved as funders, as crucial funders. PHAs are all around the state, continuum of care, foundations, other funders that come in for the property. So what we see on our properties really commonly is on the rental assistance side, we'll have a different mix depending on where the property is and the scope and size and the need for the property. So roughly half of our supportive housing has COC project-based rental assistance for operating support. And so like I said before, there's only 2 COCs in Indiana. We have the Indianapolis and then the balance of state. So projects decide what operating source they want to pursue based on their need and their location. So COC has been really crucial because of the services funding aspect that the COC brings, and services funding for Indiana at least is the most difficult piece to nail down. Most of our services are paid for through Medicaid. So having that additional services funding resource there is incredibly important. So that is a very popular resource. Of course, it is a more limited resource, and then it has to renew annually, which isn't great for developments. So sometimes they don't want to go through that process and try to pursue that. So a lot of our projects also are using project-based housing choice vouchers. So IHCDA will receive permission to place project-based housing choice vouchers in other PHA jurisdictions. So that's how we typically fund a lot of the supportive housing around the state. When there's a smaller PHA doesn't have capacity to do project-based, then we will receive permission from them so that we can go into their jurisdiction. And then larger PHAs like the city of Indianapolis, and there's a few others that have worked with us really well, have capacity and are supportive of the mission and of supportive housing generally. And they will work with us and kind of issue RFPs for project-based vouchers and put in a preference for institute projects so that our institute projects can gain access to them. And it's always our preference for the local PHA to provide the vouchers, because it's really their kind of position to do that. And we only do it if they can't or won't do it, so that we can still operate anywhere in the state and have operating support. So on our results, so we've had about 50 projects that have gone to the Institute that are operational, and about 1,200 units. So we have 7 funded projects that are in development right now. So those have already received funding and are being in construction, some stage of construction. And then we have 17 teams that are in the stage of obtaining funding right now, which I had to double check the number because it's a lot. But we have a lot from the last few years, and our tax credit application is closing in a week or 2. So we'll probably get a couple of those through this year, hopefully. Okay, so my contact information is here. So please feel free to email me if you have any questions, and I will send these slides so they can be shared after the presentation as well.
Wow. Thank you so much, Zach. Just really great information shared on behalf of Indiana and all the great work that's happening there, great outcomes and great processes that you all are coordinating. So thank you so much. We also have Dana Schulz that's also joining us, who is the Permanent Supportive Housing Program Manager with Oregon Housing and Community Services, who also is funding supportive housing. And so Dana, would love to hear from you about the work that you all are doing, especially around the services piece, because I think Zach covered really well the capital stack and a lot of the ways that they're doing that. How is Oregon doing services?
Great. Hi there. Is my slideshow showing or is it my presenter screen?
Nope, your slides are showing. Looks good.
Oh. All right, off to a good start. So, well, thank you, Brooke. My name is Dana Schulz. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the PSH Program Manager at Oregon Housing and Community Services. I'm going to try to stay under 10 minutes. So I'm going to kind of breeze over these slides, but I can definitely answer any questions afterwards. So OHCS, who are we? We're the state housing finance agency for Oregon. We fund programs all across the housing continuum, from housing development to homelessness services, energy assistance, rental assistance, and home ownership. So all things housing and policy around housing, OHCS has their hands in. It sounds like you've been talking about what supportive housing is and what PSH is, but just real quick, what Oregon is working off of in terms of what is PSH. We're talking about developing housing that's deeply affordable to folks living on extremely low incomes, housing that's permanent, so households are signing a lease, housing that's offering comprehensive tenancy support services that are accessed on site and that are voluntary, and that housing that's prioritizing to serve the most vulnerable folks experiencing homelessness. So in Oregon, we require our PSH projects to serve households experiencing homelessness, chronic homelessness. And these projects are rooted in the housing first philosophy, and the PSH is a proven model to effectively serve households experiencing homelessness who have complex needs. And also it's shown to reduce public system costs, such as in healthcare, criminal justice, and emergency systems, which was a big sell for our legislature to make a significant investment in PSH. Just real quick about how Oregon came to really drive towards creating 1,000 units of PSH across Oregon. Back in 2018, OHCS worked closely with our health authority to start the statewide supportive housing strategic work group. They went around to communities, providers, developments, housing developers, clinics across Oregon, and PSH just kept coming up as the critical housing need. So this led to our governor, Kate Brown, prioritizing PSH development in her housing agenda. It also made PSH a priority in our 2019 statewide housing plan that basically laid out the path for the next 5 years of housing development. And this was the catalyst to the Oregon legislature making the most significant funding towards supportive housing that Oregon has seen to date. So we received $50 million for the development of PSH, and then 400 what they call slots, where it basically plays out to be units of rental assistance and services funding that comes from the state general funds. And then they did so again in 2021, and we expect them to do so again in 2023. So with all that funding, we were able to stand up what's called the PSH program here at OHCS. It's our first state program that funds all components of PSH, so the development capital, the services funding, and rental assistance, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But I just wanted to lay out what we require of PSH projects. All projects need to be providing those on-site tenancy support services. They have to be utilizing a project-based rental assistance. They could be utilizing our rental assistance that we offer in our funding opportunities, or they can partner with their county or their housing authority to utilize a project-based vouchers like Section 8. We do require projects to attend the Supportive Housing Institute. We partner with CSH for our Supportive Housing Institute, and we prioritize funding for all institute teams that have viable projects ready to go. We do require the use of coordinated entry, HMIS, and being in partnership with their region COC. We have about 13 COCs in Oregon. We require projects to serve chronically homeless. We defer to the local definition of their COC on that. Projects have to commit to a 30-year affordability period. with rent and income limits set at 60% AMI or below, but the rental assistance needs to allow that a household is not charged more than 30% of their income towards rent. So we do, our goal of the program is to greatly increase the PSH capacity around Oregon. So making sure that we see teams that who've never been able to pull together PSH before have the opportunity to do so, and groups that have, done PSH plenty of times and let them do more and let them do it better. And so we have 4 resources. We have our PSH development capital, the sticks and bricks funding that's just offered through our standard NOFA process, our funding opportunity processes each year. And we prioritize projects that have gone through the Supportive Housing Institute. And then we also offer that long-term project-based rental assistance and long-term services funding. The services funding and the rental assistance comes from our general funds. It's super flexible money. We offer $10,000 per unit per year for PSH projects and services funding. We throw that into our specific PSH NOFA, but we also layer it into our other NOFAs. So 9% LIHTC, our veteran-specific NOFAs, our small projects NOFAs. So developers can figure out the financial packaging that works best for their project. If the PSH NOFA isn't the right fit, or if the timing isn't the right fit, to make sure that pipeline is kind of coming in from many angles, and it really works for different types of projects. Many integrated projects prefer to use our 9% or our small projects NOFA over our PSH NOFA, just the way requirements work, timing works, and how the financial layering works out. And then, of course, the Supportive Housing Institute is our main capacity building piece. Like I said, we work with CSH to do that each year. We open up a competitive RFA each year for teams to come in. And we structured it a lot like Indiana. I think we modeled this whole approach off of Indiana. So we do the same kind of cohort model where teams are coming together with a developer, a service provider, a property manager, and ideally someone with lived experience. And they workshop their project for over a course of 5 months. And it all culminates in a package of deliverables and a presentation of their final project. And like I said, our PSH program is serving chronically homeless households. I don't think I need to go too much into the Institute, but like I said, this is how we structure it. It's CSH's model. It's an awesome model. They cover all the quality standards and best practices and really brings these projects to the next level of preparation. I've seen it way too many times where projects aren't thinking about these things before doors open, and it makes a world of difference in the success and the well-being of residents. Just quickly, you can kind of see where teams that are participating in the Institute, we've got that cluster of metro projects, but we're also going all over the rural parts of Oregon. So we're trying to reach all corners of the state and get supportive housing and PSH in places in Oregon that it's never been before. So we've funded 915 PSH units since July of 2019. And just with this chunk of funding, we've funded 362 units across 16 projects. For many of these, it's the first PSH project in their community. And for some of them that are really small, they're actually going to eliminate chronic homelessness because of this PSH project, because their numbers are so small. But that's a pretty exciting statistic. All right, so those are all my slides, and Brooke just wanted to make sure that I made space for talking about the services, and I can definitely answer any questions about that. But the pipeline has been really critical for Oregon to make this happen because it allows Oregon to be a partner from the concept of the idea and working with them, and also supporting them through the development process and making sure that these projects do come to life, making sure we are able to pair funding with every project coming through the Institute. And it allows PSH just to keep coming and allows projects to learn from each other. Projects can step back and wait a year, allow other projects to come through, learn from those projects, and know that they'll have the opportunity to come the next year. And it's just been really important for driving PSH across our state. So, thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dina. Really great presentation and a great compliment to the work happening in Indiana, but you all are doing phenomenal results. So we're really thankful and appreciative. And this really helps us think about the next conversation in Nevada is about how do we build the capacity here in the state of Nevada. I definitely want to be able to elevate. We've got a great example from a developer who's new to Nevada that's coming here and want to bring them forward in the interest of time, just to talk about the example about how capacity has supported their work. And so Anthony, if you could help us talk about the work happening in Wisconsin and how capacity building has helped support your work.
No, yes, indeed. And thanks again, Brooke and Nevada Housing Coalition for the opportunity today to present some of our projects here in Wisconsin. As Brooke mentioned, we're definitely new to Nevada and very excited just to partner with the state in order to develop affordable and supportive housing. So as other presenters alluded to, we also went through the Corporation for Supportive Housing training. We actually just graduated about a month ago. So we were part of that institute, which is very, very, very informational for us. And this slide right here shows, our partners where we had KPH as our contractor, Partners for Community Development as our property manager, and care management will serve as the service provider for the supportive units. And I just want to highlight two projects where we used new construction and also adaptive reuse and the different funding sources in order to fund those deals. So this site that we use for the institute is a site that we currently own, 1.7 acres, and we're proposing 50 units of, it'll actually be integrated supportive housing, 50 total units, and 25% of the units set aside for supportive housing. Here are some of the project renderings just to show you guys. Total project costs coming in around 14.8 million. We're anticipating 100 new 6 jobs created during construction, 25 jobs retained via direct, indirect spending. And very, very intentional, making sure we have as many MBE, SBE, contractors, subcontractors, entities working on the project as possible. Here are some of the project sources that we use to finance the integrated supportive housing. So in Wisconsin in general, it usually takes around 5 to 7 sources to do deals here in Wisconsin. We also have a state program, but the reason why it takes so many sources is because our state program reduces our equity request to 53%. So we have a financial leverage category here in Wisconsin that, it's kind of hurts projects and, make it need more subsidy to make these projects feasible. But anyway, we have here 9% LIHTC equity. That's, pretty much paying for 53% of the portion. We have 33.2 in perm debt, 35-year amortization. We have a TIF. So in Wisconsin, we do a tax incremental financing. Tax abatements are illegal in the state of Wisconsin. So they pretty much can finance us a 20-year TIF where, pretty much pay our taxes and we get it back minus the admin fee in order to cover that developer TIF. We also very, key is the Federal Home Land Bank of Chicago, so the Affordable Housing Program. Chicago is our member state, and so we can, access $15,000 per unit up to $900,000 for every affordable unit. Cedar Milwaukee also, receives home funds and trust funds as well. And we also have a cash flow loan that's needed in order to, make this deal feasible. The cash flow loan is projected to start paying year 15. Then also a deferred developer fee. It's how we use to pay for new construction. And just quickly, just to hit on the adaptive reuse. Are you able to go to the next slide, Brooke? I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So from the adaptive reuse project, we have an old medical building that we converted into 30 supportive units. And we didn't use any tax credits for this project, but definitely a lot of grants. So we had a perm debt of 1.5, soft forgivable loan, 500,000, an OHCS grant from the federal government, which if you're creating jobs, allows you to tap into grants. So we were able to tap into 700,000, about 542,000 in home funds from the city, and then 127,000 in equity to pay for this adaptive reuse. So these are just a couple of different ways to kind of, fund a new construction and adaptive reuse. Now, obviously, adaptive reuse is going to be less cost, or more cost effective and, require less sources. These are some of our sources that we use to kind of help fund some of the rent or the operating expenses. So, especially big one is the Medicaid and continuum of care, which really helps fund the services side, the supportive units to make sure, this building and the services are operational. I just want to just share a couple, projects, and this is our development timeline here, just to show when we expect to be open with construction. The Adaptive Reuse is currently, under construction, should be open sometime in December, which is a bad time in Wisconsin to move in. And then for new construction, we won't be open until 2025. Here are some other renderings that we have. We received tax credits on last year. This is a project that's 55 units and have 13 units of permanent supportive housing set aside. And this will start construction next month sometime, about the end of August. Then this is another one we have here we're extremely excited about, 91 units, which has 23 units of supportive, permanent supportive housing units. And this also starts construction next month. We received tax credits last year and also had a demonstration kitchen, which we're super excited about, meant to, train existing food entrepreneurs and our residents to teach them how to, cook healthy food from the community garden. So pretty excited. And all these are both 9% deals as well. And then this is project contact list. This is some of our property managers and contractors and the KG team. I know that was kind of quick, but I really just thank you guys for the opportunity to just highlight some of these projects.
Yes, thank you so much, Anthony. Really appreciate just all the work that you all are doing, and excited that we have you as a developer here in the state of Nevada doing this work. Really great, exciting examples to showcase. And so all of this, we want to kind of highlight the importance. Again, we started this conversation about quality supportive housing. We know that if we bring the quality training and quality services to build capacity, we're going to reach quality outcomes. People are going to stay housed. They're going to increase their income. We know supportive housing is cost effective. And so we want Chuck to come in and help us talk about the Incubator Academy, because this is why we all want you all to be interested in this work and to sign up, because we would love for you to be a part of this new wave. So Chuck, talk to us about what this Incubator Academy is going to do.
Once again, I forget to unmute myself. Thanks again for everybody joining us today. And this is really a great opportunity for you all to take this conversation to the next level and really explore your own capacity and collaboration with others in developing supportive housing in Nevada. So the next phase in this is we are going to hold 3 virtual strategy sessions, very interactive. This is the time we want to hear from you. We want to hear what was successful, what have your challenges have been, what are the barriers, how can we help Nevada really advance supportive housing in the state. So we want to hear from developers, from property managers, service providers, and funders. And we especially want to hear from rural, urban, and frontier organizations. Rural organizations are just as critical in supportive housing as are urban. So we really want to ensure that participation. And there's 3 opportunities to participate. Each is an hour-long session. You can register at the link below, July 18th, July 20th, or the 26th. So hopefully you all will take the time to register for one of those sessions. That's going to lead us into the actual Incubator Academy. And it's during that academy that we're really going to take the time to look at networking, what quality supportive housing is, how we can center racial equity, and how we can in particular elevate the voices of people with lived experience in supportive housing. I can't express how critical that is in developing a successful program, to hear from the people who actually have used the services and actually have come out of homelessness into a supportive housing environment. We'll talk more about different models. We'll talk about partnerships, quality measurement, development processes, all those things that come together to create a successful supportive housing program in the community. So how do we sign up for that? So there's 2 opportunities. You have to participate in the virtual August 25th, 1 o'clock to 4 p.m. session. to be able to participate in the in-person sessions on August 30th or September 1st. So 2 programs, one is August 25th, and then we're going to do an in-person program in Northern Nevada in Reno on August 30th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then we'll repeat that session in Southern Nevada in Las Vegas on September 1st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Please register, go to the Nevada Housing Coalition to sign up for one of those events. You'll see Brooke and I, as well as another team member and other housing providers to support this work, and really want to look forward to having that opportunity to work with you and see you at one of these events. So I think, one more slide. At the end of the academy, you'll really have a great understanding around what it takes to develop supportive housing. We will also provide project-specific TA services. You'll be featured during the statewide housing conference. There will be opportunities for catalyst funding for the projects that are awarded, as well as priority for future capacity building opportunities. So all of this is leading up to creating a pipeline of supportive housing in Nevada, and we're excited to be able to be a part of that work going on. So questions you may have, I think we're going to turn it over to Juanita now to kind of close us out. And again, on behalf of CHS, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Chuck, and thank you all the speakers. That was such an amazing presentation. So much really important, great information. I really think that it showed what's possible, what we can do here in Nevada, what good examples of what other places are doing, and how we can adjust those approaches to fit our specific needs. We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to leave some time for questions. Thank you. I want to remind everybody to register for the events on the Nevada Housing Coalition website. Reach out to me with any questions, or any of the speakers with any questions. Before you guys sign off, I'd love to take a quick poll of what region you're attending from. We made a little quick poll so we could get an idea of where around the state people are coming from. I just launched that. If you could answer, it's just one question. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll answer them. Otherwise, feel free to reach out at a later time if you think of something. We'll be sending the information out in an email to all the registrants with a link to the video if you want to watch again, with a link to all the speakers and more information. There is a mistake on the website. It says that August 31st for the North event, but it's actually going to be August 30th. We're going to fix that today. So sorry about the confusion. We've been planning a lot of events and switching up dates and trying to figure it out. So there might be a couple of changes, but we'll always give you all the information. So, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any concerns, or if you want to talk about specific things that your project needs or capacity building that your team is interested in. I'm here for that. So don't be shy. Thanks again, everybody. Just making sure that there's no other questions I missed in the chat. I really appreciate everybody. It's so exciting to see how much interest is here. Oh, look, that's good. That's a good poll. We got a lot of folks here. I'm really excited about what's going on here. Okay, I guess we'll sign off. Don't see any questions, but again, thank you again. I'm very excited. I'm just gonna think about this all day long and think about how we're gonna get so much supportive housing built. I really believe in it. I've seen it work. I see it work for individuals. I see it work for communities, and I know it can work for Nevada. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.